So let's talk about how to do race day registrations. Now, there are a couple options on how you can handle this in RunSignup. The first and easiest way to do this is to actually just leave your registrations open through the morning of your race. So under race registration, dates, pricing, and options, you can also do this through step 3 of the wizard. What we typically recommend is always making sure that you don't close your registration the night before or the weekend before your race. By keeping registrations open, this allows for participants to, register on their phones when they get to the race, while they're on their way to the race. It just gives your participants a lot of options to register for the race the morning of. Oftentimes, we find that most participants do like to register on their own device. So this allows for them to use their own device, something that they're comfortable with, to be able to register the day of the race. Something that you can do specifically for race day registrations is you can set up fast registration, and you can set this up to only take into effect on a specific day or a specific date range. So if you go to race registration, fast registration options, there's a couple of options, and typically we recommend enabling it by date range, and you can say between this day and that day. You can skip certain fields that you may not specifically need. So typically this date is usually set to the day of your race. So you can set your start and end date to sort of beginning at midnight the day of your race, and set this all the way to the end of your race, day of your race. So for race day registrations, you may not actually need their address. You may not need them to answer any custom questions or anything like that. Sort of the important things that you are probably looking for is name, age or date of birth, gender if you're doing gender awards, and typically that's really all you would need. So this allows you to expedite the participants' registration experience, whether they're doing it on their phones or whether they're doing it on their computers before they head to the race. So something to note about if you do enable fast registration on mobile, you'll just want to make sure that you turn this feature off after your race is completed. We've seen races that forget to turn this off, and when they renew their race for the following year, giveaway questions are being skipped. So just make sure you turn this off once your race is concluded.
Yeah, but if you have the date range set up, then you should be all good. You don't need to do the mobile as well, because that's going to cover everybody on race day.
So something that you can also do if you're going to leave your registrations open through the day of the race is you can use QR codes and put them on signage across maybe the location of your packet pickup or anything like that. This allows participants to scan that QR code, and it'll take them right to the sign up page on your RunSignup website. So on the race dashboard, if you go to promotions, links, and if you scroll down, you'll see a handful of QR codes. Now, by default, we'll generate QR codes for specific pages like your sign up link, your volunteer link, your donations link. In this particular use case, we're going to use the sign up link. So you can simply copy that QR code, and you can print that off and put that on any signage around your race. So when participants scan that QR code, they'll be automatically taken to the first step of the sign up portion of the registration. Another option is if you have a pre-race expo and you have some of your own equipment, i.e. some of your own computers, iPads or anything like that, you can use on-site registration. Now with on-site registration, typically these are going to be essentially loaded onto one of your devices that's going to stay at a table, and participants can come in and use that computer or iPad to register themselves. The biggest difference between using on-site registration versus having a participant register directly on their phone is that with on-site registration, we automatically log the participant off once they complete the registration, and you'll see a next registrant button. And so you can click that button, and it goes right back to the first step of the registration process, and the next participant can come in and register themselves. So if you go to Race Day Tools, on-site registration, you'll want to enable on-site registration, and you can either use the QR code or you can copy the link. And that'll be the link that you will go to on your specific device that you want to use for on-site registration.
Now for this QR code here, You wouldn't want to share this with people outside of your race. This isn't something you would put on the signage or anything. This is just for people who are setting up devices that are going to be using this on-site registration.
You also want to set up a password that volunteers will have to enter in so that they can access the specific link. So a couple additional things with on-site registration is you can allow for cash payments. So essentially there will be a button at the end of the registration portion that allows for a volunteer to basically say this is a cash payment, and they'll enter in this cash payment password. So in case, you want to take in cash on the day of.
And for these fields here, the password hint fields, it's always good to just put in the actual password there. That way, if you have a question and you're asking us about it, we can go in and see what your password is. We can log in and try to figure it out.
A couple of other things specific to on-site registration is you can allow for manual entry of bib numbers at the end of the on-site registration. You can also hide the sign-in button for on-site registration. So by default, there will be a sign-in button showing at the top when you go to the on-site registration link that will prompt participants to log into their RunSignup account if they do have one.
And again, if you do allow for sign-ins, once they sign in and register, it's going to log them out immediately afterwards.
You can restrict on-site registration to specific events only. So, for example, if you have like virtual and in-person races, you can restrict it to only your in-person events. And then you can also customize any required fields. By default, we'll ask the participants for sort of all of these generic fields: first name, last name, email, gender, date of birth, so on and so forth. If you want to customize that and you want to skip certain fields, similar to what we did with the fast registration, you can set this up here. And then if for whatever reason you want to only enable on-site registration only, and you don't want any participants to register through your front-end website, this will require participants to come to whatever station you have set up for on-site registration, and they will have to use one of your machines to register for the race. Depending on the situation, you may or may not want this turned on. Again, by turning this on, you're restricting your participants on sort of where they can register. If you leave this off and allow for participants to continue to register on their own devices, it sort of gives them more flexibility.